a way to start off with just this terrifying music that immediately puts me in the mind of that really bad place where I need an adult that we had with Rusalka. Hello there everybody, Sabanai2AK9 and welcome back to Irae Amantes Amentes. Well, how do I summarize the last episode? Besides having an obvious censored moment between Himuro and Ren, which actually revealed that he's kind of back to normal, so that's good, I guess. We got a little bit more information about Wilhelm, and I had a bit of a question about the wording of a particular sentence about mother sister, and it is exactly as I feared, and I don't want to get into that. Let's avoid let's just casually avoid ever touching that subject for right now. At least I probably won't know anything else. But yeah, it's about as bad as I thought it would be. Which means that going through his story in Interview with Kaziklu-Bey is going to be absolutely delightful. Also, Kasumi and Honjo and Shiro are okay, and we're kind of back with them right now as they're in the Labyrinth of the Roses, so hey, fucking hell. Also, Mercurius decided to play mind games with Shiro and drew so many goddamn parallels. As well as revealed quite a bit of information concerning Kasumi's real parents. Yeah. But anyway, let's move a little bit away from that for right now. Time did not seem to have an effect on the place. The three pushed forward through a never-changing scenery of darkness and crimson. Right, left. The branches in the road would manifest with nothing to set them apart. The invariable design of the place eroded one's sense of direction like poison. All the branches they would come upon seemed like they had led to the exact same place, without a single alteration in their appearance. None of them could possibly find their way back at this point. However, the more Shiro looked at it, the more perplexing it appeared. Why could they see their surroundings when the darkness in this place allowed for not a single ray of light to seep through? It wasn't like the roses emitted light. It felt more like they were looking at the world through a crimson filter. But it didn't block out anything from their vision. They saw the scenery in darkness as if it was completely natural. Was this how darkness looked in the eyes of this world's creator? Or was this phenomena related to the fact they no longer possessed physical bodies? That answer didn't feel any less disconcerting, so Shiro decided to just cut those thoughts short. The humidity grew worse with every step. It felt like they were trapped in an invisible mist that made it even breathing an arduous toil. Shiro had trouble enduring this place. He could only imagine how bad it was for the girls. A viscous atmosphere, coated with fresh blood. Blood was a metaphor for poison. Those are the laws obeyed by this place. The heart of a vampire would pump malice and bloodlust through its veins, exposing them to a dreadful and merciless torrent of bile as they ventured through one such blood vessel. Shiro began to feel silly for even giving those choices any serious thought. He refused to mope. Hesitating in a place like this would have been the equivalent of tying one's own noose. Fair point. Also, I'm pretty sure sticking to the right-hand trick is probably not going to work in a place like this. I mean, if it was that easy to escape, then there might be we might have to have a talk with Kaziklu-Bey on how to design how his stomach is laid out. Then again, that's probably a conversation we should probably never even go toward. They had neither maps nor signs to help them. As such, a random choice was no different from a carefully planned one. Ellie nudged Kasumi from behind when she stopped in place, unable to come up with a retort. Shiro proceeded onwards as the two girls caught up to him. They continued their trek in silence, pulled in one direction as if they were affected by a magnet. Right, left, right, center. Up, left, down, right, fuck. Up, down, left, right, 80. Sorry. Shiro strained his ears in anticipation as he felt their goal growing ever closer, its faint breathing getting louder and louder. He pushed onwards with unfounded conviction. A chill crept up his feet like a shadow and suddenly jolted all the way up his back with an almost palpable sensation of fright. He was there, or rather, it was there. It was something unfathomable. A whirlpool of passions and obsessions, discarded like a carcass, had been swirling a mere step ahead of them. Is it Mini Wilhelm? Shiro felt terror crawl across his skin, yet took a step forward nonetheless.
Oi, oi.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute! He sounded a chortle of pure exasperation. Did I not see this in that flashback where we actually got to see Wilhelm before, he joined the LDO? I'm pretty sure I think this is the same alleyway that I saw in that flashback extra story. He sounded a chortle of pure exasperation. Son of a bitch, there's the kid! A familiar, pallid kid greeted him with a belligerent glare as he turned the corner. Shiro surveyed the changed scenery, understanding exactly what was going on. The olfactory landscape shifted as well, the festering scent of roses giving way to the smell of a decrepit back alley.
子供？っていうか君、なんでこんなところに一人で？ちょい待ち、かすみちゃん。それ以上近寄らない方がいい。
Ellie stopped Kasumi with a rigid voice as the latter was about to run up to the child, overcome by her natural tendency to meddle in other people's affairs. Shiro signaled for the two to stay back, and took an uncurbed step towards the child. If his suspicions proved correct, the boy was not something Kasumi could have handled.
Yo, bozu. こんなとこで何してる?
The boy produced no reaction, but the bloodlust emanating from him did little to veil his obvious hostility toward Shiro and the others. A ferocious glare, warped by savagery, boundless and indiscriminate animosity. Shiro nearly forgot his own situation, awed by the sheer potency of an emotion that could not possibly belong to someone of such tender years. Speaking of, the whole obsession with his freaking bloodlust. I think it was G-Ace that kind of put this into perspective for me. I mean, after all, we know his origin and what he is. Constantly trying to replace his blood. And the whole phrase about it being unchaste blood, yeah, that puts that into a whole new perspective. The way the kid unveiled his fangs like a beast overlapped with Shiro's recollection of the man. So he had been a vampire since those days. A voice of dissatisfaction, like a curse, escaped the kid's lips. The emotion it unveiled was that of a starving beast.
んだよ、生きがるのは最初だけか。ちょいと遊んでやればこのざまだ。人を散々クズだのなんだの抜かしておいて、腕の一本でも割いてやったらもう命乞いかや。くだらねえ。なんだそりゃ。クズって言ったんだろ。クズと思ってるんだろ。ならそれに頭下げてるてめえらはなんだってんだ。クズ以下じゃねえか。あっさり肯定しやがって。
Bowing your heads to that piece of shit?
そうまで自分が惜しいかね。楽して壊して笑いたいかよ。救えねえな。そりゃクズか。なあおい、なんか言ってみろよ。なあ。
Are you talking to me or are you talking to Shiro? Upon closer inspection, the girl realized the floor was littered with corpses, all broken in the most gruesome of ways. How do you not notice that? Some had their necks and limbs sticking out at unnatural angles like broken toys. Some had their spines savagely crushed. Some had their severed heads stuffed into holes in their abdomens. About 7 people in total. It was somewhat hard to tell with their body parts all over the place, but that would most likely have been the number had someone glued them all back together. And frankly, they were in no mood to start thoroughly calculating things with ripped out hearts and pieces of crushed brains staring back at them from the floor. The culprit of this gruesome scene clicked his tongue out of irritation and sheer tedium. They'd all break apart and die before the game would even start. How boring. The dissatisfaction on the boy's face mirrored his inner turmoil as he kicked one of the corpses into the air with unmasked irritation. A temper tantrum caused by starvation. Nothing could fulfill him. It was a gesture of discontent at the meaningless tranquility bestowed upon him by a series of hollow, effortless victories. The insufficiency of one's existence, the kind of lethal boredom that Shiro too had felt without Ren there to challenge him all the time. The boy had already reached that level. He, who could unleash unmatched violence, made the world of night his own, and could no longer find anything that would genuinely test his prowess. He'd already annihilated everyone that used to be here. Any new enemies would have to come from the outside. And all of them, without exception, were fools at their bark, succeeding their bite, unable to ascertain the difference in their strength, a group of foolish feet wandering into the lion's den on their own. As such, he had been plagued by irritation ever since he descended upon the night as its master. How much longer must he feed on rotten leftovers? They could at least try to devise a plan and come up with something to counter him with. Or was he a fool for expecting such things from mere humans? He deeply furrowed his brows. He glared at the moon, his eyes crimson and teeth sharp, as if he truly was a vampire that had wandered into this world from some legend of old. He broke his gaze from the corpse and started along the river of blood.
どっかにいねえもんかね。ちょうどいい骨のあるやつ。
An opponent as broken and consequently as unbreakable as him. Someone he could use up all his accumulated souls on. With that sentiment on his lips, the silhouette of the boy, as well as the corpse surrounding him, vanished into nothing.
何よ。何なの今の。
Ignoring Kasumi's trembling voice, Shiro gave Ellie an eye signal. There was no time to explain, and the truth would only cause her to panic more.
行くぞ。
Shiro resumed the search with renewed caution as Ellie calmed Kasumi down behind him. Thank you for that, Ellie. Contrary to the abnormality of the situation, there had been vigor in his steps. That earlier scene made sense to Shiro, helping him better understand the laws governing this place. It was in no way surprising. It made all the sense in the world for scenes like these to play out within Wilhelm's belly. Blood carried all the information of one's body. Nutrients, oxygen, its job was to supply the whole body, answering the call of every single cell within it. As such, it was an integrated circuit, possessing even more information on processing than the brain. Consequently, it was hardly surprising for things once consciously forgotten to be replayed in this place. Peeking into Wilhelm's memories, they saw... Goddamn, am I gonna get a peek into an interview with Kaziklu Bey? The details of his incomplete departure from humanity. There was no way they could have avoided running into the scene of familial carnage that served as one of the core pillars supporting Wilhelm's origins.
いい燃え具合じゃねえかよ。門出にしちゃなかなかだ。そうだ、燃えろ燃えろ燃えちまえ。俺を縛っていたもの、畜生の証明、胸くそ悪い吐きだめの情。なあ、ここでもろとも全て崩れ落ちてしまうがいい。そうだろうや。悪いな、親父。鬱陶しいんだ、ヘルが。俺の居場所はそこじゃねえのさ。あんたの腹は手狭でねえ。遊び場としちゃ物足りねえのや。
Your mom's name was Helga? The scenery showed a house on fire as well as two corpses within. His father and sister. They lay there in the pools of their own blood, shredded to unrecognizable pieces of meat. Their body parts lay scattered everywhere, nailed to the walls and the floors they'd roasted like pieces in a twisted insect collection. Even the stench of burning human flesh was perfectly reproduced. His boyhood, the very blood that stood testament to it, was consumed by flames. Flames would scorch all impurity, and that was why he hated them. May his very beginnings turn to ash. May it all become mere embers, to forever warm his chest with satisfaction, serving as sustenance for his new life. A night never to be forgotten. The heat, the pain, the joy. Good lord. That was one of the very few occurrences that filled Wilhelm Ehrenberg's heart with satisfaction. The night trembled with the echo of his cackle as the boy made his first step into the supernatural.
よくやる。
Yeah. Kasumi covered her mouth and fell to her knees with a whimper. Her face turned pale as a ghost's, and it took all her effort not to puke from the dreadful sight. Although her feet remained firmly planted on the ground, Ellie's countenance was far from chipper either. She glared at the spot where Wilhelm's cackling image had disappeared.
なんというか、まあ資料じゃ知ってたことだけどさ。
聞くのと見るのじゃ大違いだわな。まあ傍観者が賢者ぶれるのはそのためだろうけどよ。
Be as it may, the earlier scene was drenched in palpable malice. A vile act of premeditated murder carried out by a madman. A depravity so unpleasant it made all those that were merely aware of its existence feel like they had gulped down a bucket full of vomit. And knowledge of the exact details would only make the experience worse. If Kasumi witnessed everything, from the rape to the slow dismemberment, her consciousness would have shattered to pieces. Aside from that, there was another kind of conviction that arose in Shiro's chest. Something that would help them escape this place. Something exceptionally special to this world that remained unchanged ever since the day it was killed.
しかしまあそうなると面倒だわな。
Provided his suspicions were correct, that thing could never be plundered by someone else. If it was like a treasure chest in some game, things would have been easy, but the real world wasn't convenient like that. Pondering what to do, he extended an arm to his crumpled childhood friend.
ほれ、捕まれ。
Kasumi reached out with her own faltering hand in complete silence, and he pulled her up. Her face was as pale as before, and she trembled so bad it seemed her body might break and crumble apart.
ねえ、大丈夫？なわけないか。ごめん。
Yeah.
支えいる？
Yeah, right now, Kasumi really needs some support right now.
もう平気。ありがとう、エリー。
Kasumi tried to force a smile, succeeding only at contorting her face in an uncomfortable grimace as she thanked Ellie. Good thing she could control herself, as they had to take her with them nonetheless. With no path of retreat, all they could do was push forward.
ねえ、シロ、ここ、どこ？
Her trembling question rang more like confirmation. Kasumi might not have been the sharpest tool in the shed, but it didn't take a genius to start putting two and two together. Given her memories right before coming to this place, as well as all the inexplicable phenomena happening as of late. Realizing what had happened to her before coming here,
さっきの人って、やっぱりあの怖い人だよね。なら、私たちが見たのって、やっぱりそういうことで。
meant acknowledging her own death.
もしかして私たち、もうとっくに。
どうだかな。
That was one thing Shiro would never allow to be acknowledged, and so he interrupted her.
どうだかって、そんなのそうとしか思えないじゃない。ここおかしいよ。さっきみたいなのが続けて見えるなんて普通じゃない。どうやって来たかだってわかんないのに、どうしてシロはそう言えるの？
そりゃ出る方法知ってるからな。
ほら見なさいよ。だから実は私たちもうみんなさっきの人に。
Kasumi stared at Shiro with a blank expression, her earlier anger now gone without a trace. All she could do was silently gape her mouth like some fish.
ハレム、あんたそれマジ？
まあ出口っつうか出るのに必要なもんがあるっぽいんだけどよ。もともと欲しがってたもんもそいつをどうにかしないと無理らしい。
罠とかみたいなの？もしくは門番？
Mm-hmm.
いや多分金庫に近いと見るね。
Actually, that probably makes more sense. Or a wedge. Of course, a fucking wedge! May as well get a steak. Let's get ready. It was something akin to his sixth sense, so he didn't go into the details, but that was the only explanation as to why they were still wandering around in Wilhelm's insides. And if he was off, all that remained was being sucked dry and turned into fertilizer for the roses of this place. The situation required bi-directional thinking.
本当に嘘じゃないよね。このタイミングで騙すとかなしだよ。あらら、信用ないみたいよ、シロ。普段構ってあげないからじゃない？
俺はいいんだよ。そういうのは適任がいるからな。つうわけで、ほれ、とっとと行くぜ。多分もう少しだ。さすがにそれまでは我慢しろ。
はいはい。そんじゃもう一踏ん張り行きますか。
Having successfully calmed down the girl, Shiro proceeded through the Forest of Roses. It didn't seem like they trusted him completely, but that was enough to buy some time at least. He'd rather not discuss the metaphysics of this place for now. I'm pretty sure it would not be good for Kasumi, realistically, so let's just try not to do that yet. In any case, they should have been able to continue in peace until another abnormality, or something like that, occurred to unsettle Kasumi again.
到着も近いだろうしな。
He was confident of that, convinced. Wilhelm's memories, the ones they'd encountered twice now, proved that much. They also coincided with what the dismembered voice had told him, allowing Shiro to grasp the details of the situation. Next would be the last stop. That memory from before was the first and last time Wilhelm felt fulfilled. And if he had yet to taste that kind of undulated joy again, despite his quest, it meant there shouldn't be any memories remaining. As such, none of the prey he had hunted since then would grant his wish, and would only lead to a repetition of his initial hunger. As such, the so-called exceptional thing that the voice described was most likely the palpable proof of Wilhelm's success to quench it once. The proof of his glory, preserved in his insides like a metal and functioning as the core of his world. Things once lost would never return. As such, it was natural to treasure things that one gained. A theory far better suited to his friend than Shiro himself, but he felt it applied to Wilhelm in this case. The Forest of Roses came to an end, where he found exactly what he expected. A blood fountain? An exquisite fountain, its symmetric basin filled to the brim with roses. Fresh blood poured from it in an almost dazzling display. The roses filling the basin seemed to live off that blood. They all looked nearly artificial in their excellence, throbbing as they devoured the vitae around them.
ここってバラ園。それもなんて希望。
They glanced around the bizarre yet overwhelming place. It was magnificent, even gorgeous in a way. Yet any sane mind would nonetheless label it as hideous. At this point, all the roses had a festering scent of copper to them. Shiro, taking only light breaths to avoid infecting his lungs with the dreadful thing, drew closer to the fountain as if spellbound. Yes, it was there, the most important existence in constituting Wilhelm's world.
あら、
Huh?
お兄さん、誰？
Wait, hold. Wait a minute. Who the fuck are you? You. Wait, hold on, wait. Wait a minute! Marie's ending. Everybody reincarnated and they meant Wilhelm had a sister. No. She's got fangs. She's got, well, black sclera, but red eyes and white. Wait. Who? He came all this way to have a conversation with this girl, upon whom the blood of the fountain incessantly rained.
あんたの弟。いや、息子か。ともかく、あいつの知り合いだ。よろしくな、お姉さん。
That's his mother, sister? He concentrated all of his faculties on analyzing the situation as he carried on the conversation. And now came the difficult part. I bet he couldn't afford to lose. He had to guide this hand to victory no matter what. So wait, is this Helga?
まあ、あの子のお友達なの？嬉しいわ。ビルにもお友達ができたなんて。ああ、ごめんなさいね。お花の世話の最中で、私ったら全然おもてなしもできてないわ。
I don't know how to mentally process what I'm seeing right now.
立ち話なんだ。別段気にしてねえさ。それより花の世話って言ったな。あんたここに来て長いのか？
Okay, I need to do interview with... I said I was going to do it, but now I need to do interview with Kaziklu Bay because I have so many goddamn questions right now.
ええ、あの子に愛されてからずっと。
What? She gave Shiro a euphoric smile, visibly proud of her gorgeous abode. Almost as if she herself was one of its many blooming roses.
シロ、なんかこの人。
You think? Shiro motioned to Kasumi to keep silent. He knew what she had meant, but now was hardly the time to be discussing that. Even a complete dumbbell could have realized that the girl had a few screws loose. Her frail smile resembled an artificial flower, while her eyes were vacuous, unable to fixate on a single point.
愛しているし、愛されたの。やっとなのよ。もうビルったら奥手でね。ずっと私を抱いてくれなかったの。
Bater never waited that long. She continued, her cheeks flushing, her eyes melting as if spellbound by a dream.
そしてあの子を産んだのにね。私の大切なビルヘルム。大切な愛しい家族。
はあ、そりゃまた熱烈な愛情なことで。
Shiro felt like clutching his head at that blissful smile. What Shiro felt was the very definition of mixed feelings. He had no room for sympathy in his heart, but he still couldn't help feeling sorry for him in a way. He never thought to see the day when he'd feel something like that towards that pallid bastard of all people. It was hardly surprising to see someone nurtured in such a decadent, depraved cradle to grow up to be a monster.
そうすると、あんたあいつに侵されて幸せだったってわけか。
ええ、もちろん。これでようやくあの子の家族を産んであげられるもの。お腹の中で温めて愛情を注いで、そしてまた私を愛して帰ってきてくれる。ねえ、素敵だと思わない？家族にとってこれ以上ない愛でしょ。
She declared her genuine feelings with a smile on her face. Oh god. He raped and burned her alive, yet her soul was completely bereft of resentment. It was just like she had said. Love was the purest of bonds, shackling everyone to her like a chain. She could not stand the idea of anyone leaving her and wished for their unmitigated love and attention. Compared to that, even her own life was of secondary importance. Rather, it was precisely through torture and violation that she found the proof of her effect. Ugh.
ねえ、あなたも家族は仲良くないといけないって思うわよね。
Preferably with less of what the hell you went through, less murder and all of that, please. She was a carnivorous flower. She's a Venus flytrap! Her scent both the sweetest and foulest within the entire rose garden.
あらあら、ごめんなさい。気づけば私ばかり喋っちゃってるわ。恥ずかしい。せっかく久しぶりのお客様で、あの子のお友達が来てくれたのに。
ユサシロ、あんたは？
He answered the woman's stagnant eyes, murky as congealed blood while taking a step back. But she did not mind.
ヘルガエーレンブルグよ。よろしくね、お客様。
With a smile crimson as freshly spilt blood, she finally confessed to being that broken cadaver from the vision they had seen earlier. Thank you for getting me away from what I... Oh. Now I'm just terrified of Interview with Kaziklu Bay. I'm like in that weird... I'm in that weird in-between where I want to know, but I don't want to know. Because I'm afraid it's going to fuck up my already damaged head. A song reverberated across the empty square below the tower. A beautiful angelic tune, yet with no listeners present, it vanished emptily into the nether. No matter how joyful a song it was, in a town devoid of all living beings, it sounded more like a requiem. Whose voice weaved that song? What emotions did it contain? Was it sheer joy that loosened the singer's lips? A lone girl sung Little Hans, the old folk song from the Netherlands. Or was that a boy or some other thing entirely? I think at this point it's a Schreiber or Schreiber. His long, silver hair danced in the wind as he followed the rhythm of a waltz with a series of light, coordinated steps. But his eyes gazed far into the distance, to a place entirely different from where he was. He was like a fairy escaped from a picture book. As a being who could not exist in reality, his eyes were also fixed on a world thoroughly unreal. As such, no consciousness existed within him. His heart danced in the waves of bygone days, memories murky as a swamp. He was most likely not even aware of his own lips weaving a song. However, 'twas exactly that purity of his being that made him so beguilingly beautiful. He wore the radiant exquisiteness of pure innocence. And within that unreal world where the fairy danced,
Yeah.
echoed the abrupt alien thud of army boots. A carefree and thoroughly casual voice put a stop to the song that filled the dead streets just moments before. The singer froze in place. The master of the second voice emerged from the darkness, slowly infiltrating the singer's magical world of the unreal. A string of different words interrupted the ballroom dance, yet every syllable was soaked deep in passion. Wilhelm Ehrenberg directed his gaze at Schreiber, who was still trapped within his trace of self-made oblivion. The ivory demon was unable to contain a pervading sense of deja vu. He felt a surge of fierce, undulated emotions writhing in his chest. An emotion bordering nostalgia, weaved solely of malice. It wasn't merely a vague sense of foreknowledge. He knew this scene, remembered it all. He would never forget. The song, the words, the long-haired girl, all of them filled with indescribable, severe emotions that carried the weight of the world.
そのなんだ。お楽しみのところ悪いんだけどよ。ちっとばかりてめえに用があるんだわ、シュライバー。
Nothing personal, kid. Here to kill ya. His voice trembled with more excess enthusiasm. It was more or less the second time those words had left his lips, yet he still had trouble managing their timbre. As much as it felt unlike him, Wilhelm was grateful for the opportunity to have the world rewound to that nostalgic scene from his old life. The nightmarish singing voice of an angel, the long hair, a near mirror image of that day. The only difference was the lack of corpses that littered the streets back then, as well as the clothes they both wore. Not even the disparity in the surrounding architecture could capsize this kernel likeness.
あれお兄さん、なんで僕のこと知ってるの？おかしいな。途中で会った警官はみんな殺したはずなのに。もしかして覗いてた？それともいつかのお客さんかな？
Did Schreiber regress?
ねえ、僕のこといつ抱いたっけ？ちょっと覚えていないな。
I think Schreiber just did.
あいにくてめえみてえなゲテモノ食ったことはねえな。
そうなんだ。じゃあおかしいな。 殺してないし抱いてないのに殺されていないやつなんて今まで僕にはいないはずなんだけどな。
よーく思い出してみろ。お前は名乗ったはずだろうがよ。
そうかな。ねえ、僕ってこんなに物忘れ激しかったっけ？そのあたりどうかな。ちょっと自信ないや。
知るかよ。
Wilhelm made a patronizing smile, clearly entertained by Schreiber's confusion. Their conversation, despite the initial impression, followed a completely incoherent tangent. As Schreiber's perception of reality was flawed beyond repair, his thoughts circuits were just as fried as in the past. On one point, though, they were perfectly consistent. After running wild for a while, Schreiber had lulled himself into relative tranquility, sending his consciousness to the world of the past. There was no way Wilhelm could have forgotten this conversation, this atmosphere. This was the conversation they had when they first met. The ignition procedure that resulted in their deathmatch. A memory that no one else could have been familiar with. The initial members who interfered might have seen the middle, but only Wilhelm and Schreiber knew what kick-started the fight. There were a few details that differed, but the gist of it remained the same. His body might have been here, but his mind was in Berlin. As such, this is probably Schreiber's attempt to reassemble his broken mind.
なるほどな。こうやって戻ってくるわけか、てめえは。
He'd go rabid when confronted by the truth, inverting and frying his nerves, then return from the past as normal. A time travel of sorts, he'd forget whatever was inconvenient for him, turning from a weapon of unmitigated carnage back to a weapon of mass destruction. All that to regain a single function, the complete obedience to his master. What a convoluted piece of shit.
けど、いいぜ。思考としてはもう十分だ。てめえにしては上出来だな。
Unable to contain himself any longer, Wilhelm took a step forward. No more reminiscing about the past, no more marveling at the performance. The time had come for him to focus on his goal, what he wished to end and what he wished to take again, the meaning of it all.
目障りなんだてめえ。俺と似たような髪の色しやがってパチモン野郎。
That's what's pissing you off?
Right, that was it. That was exactly what he said back then. Even then, he practically spewed the words like they were vomit. Yet now, he injected them with even more of his pent-up malice.
おかげでいい迷惑だ。はあ、そうだな。ずっと迷惑ばかりだった。あの時はあっさり蹴りがつくと思ってたから違ったけどよ。本当に邪魔くせえやつだよ、てめえの存在はな。
He'd always been a thorn in his side. The similarities only made things worse. That damn rabid mutt robbed Wilhelm of the glory under Lord Heydrich's throne that should have been rightfully his. He was a freak of fucking nature that should have dropped dead that night. ALBEDO? Irae? Who were they kidding? That piece of shit was hardly worthy of the title of a worm. And the least forgivable of all was that the fucker had the audacity to claim the goal of Wilhelm's maddened zeal as his own. Wilhelm had to admire himself for managing to contain his fury for this long. The ashen bastard was even partly responsible for the curse shackling his being.
Well, hi there. The bloodlust emanating from the pallid man made a trigger go off in Schreiber's mind. He was, after all, an unparalleled combatant who sacrificed even his own sanity to attain greater prowess in battle. Broken from the get-go, there was no way he'd miss an opportunity of potential carnage, no matter how maddened of a state he was in.
ああ、なんだ、そうだったんだ。お兄さん、僕のファンだったわけなんだ。だから僕の名前も知ってたんだね。そうでしょ。そうだよね。そうなんだろ。僕が欲しくて仕方なかったんだよね。
Well, to be fair, you're half correct, but not in the way that you're thinking. I think.
The instrument of wholesale carnage had awakened from its slumber with a creak. Love or hatred, it made little difference. He would simply ravage and devour all that his one-eyed gaze fell upon. His left eye was a whirlpool of a whole plethora of twisted emotions, ranging from manic obsession through boundless passion to zealous love.
Meanwhile, the gaping cavity of his right ushered in a raging tempest, filling the square with the stench of decay.
いいな、いいよお兄さん、乗れる感じだ。名前が知りたい。これから先も今夜の興奮をたまに思い出して浸りたいよ。だからねえねえ、いいでしょ、名前教えて教えて、知りたいんだ。
ああ、いいぜ、教えてやるよ。
Wilhelm's heart danced with elation upon realizing that he managed to recreate all that happened in that night. His blood began congealing into deadly thorns. Ah, it was a good night. The time was finally nigh. As far as he was concerned, they were no longer on that cesspool of an eastern island. This was an undeniable continuation of that day, upon the nostalgic streets of Berlin that served as the beginning to it all.
清掃13騎士団国演卓第4位ビルヘルム・エーレンブルン風いくるべ。
And as he now had a name to declare.
さあ名乗りな。てめえはなんだ、何者だ。大事なとこだぜ。言ってみろよなあ、シュライバー。
Remember, who are you and who I am? And what did we struggle to attain? What did we admire? What did we pride ourselves over? What was the glory you'd be shredded to pieces for?
僕？ああ、そうだね。僕ああ、そうだ、僕はそうだよ、そうだよ。
In the moment his consciousness was about to lapse back into the past, abandoning all rational thought, he witnessed a name in the murky recesses of his broken memories that carried more glory than anything else he knew.
清掃13騎士団国演卓第12位大隊長ウォルフガング・シュライバーフローズ・ビトニル。
Kororo Vintner. That was his name.
すべてにおいて誰より早く何よりもハイドリヒ教に忠誠を誓ったあの人のアルベド、一番最初の獣の牙だ。
夢見てんじゃねえぞ。そりゃ俺のことなんだよ。
As he uttered the words that meant the absolute and undeniable truth to him, countless thorns emerged, piercing the darkness of the night sky. Ah, Scheisse, we're back in here. A tremble shook the earth without warning as a humongous earthquake upheaved the ground, causing all roses in the garden to hum in unison. An intermittent chain reaction of tremors. The phenomenon felt almost like a giant had grabbed hold of the garden, fervently flinging it in all directions.
かすみ、エリー、立ってるなよ、すっ転ぶぞ、伏せとけ。
Clinging to the ground with nothing but sheer tenacity, Shiro did his best to survey the mess around him. His instincts told him that this phenomenon that shook the whole of the netherworld, but inexplicable, held for him a rare opportunity. Wilhelm had most likely started a battle just now, and against a foe so powerful it made his insides tremble. Naturally, Shiro had no idea who it could have been. He could easily imagine the bastard falling out with his comrades and killing them, but Shiro had no recollection of anyone that could have caused the Ivory Demon to experience such a fierce sense of elation. Oh, if only you knew, Shiro, if only you knew. He had a few run-ins with the psychos before, but Wilhelm came off as by far the most savage of them all. Didn't feel like any others had compared to him in a straight fight, either. Well, maybe Ren if he powered up enough. Yet the ringing roses conveyed the ecstasy of their master. It was so strong that even they, despite being foreign bodies within the demon's gestalt, felt its effect drilling into their brains.
ってことは新手か。
Shiro had to assume Wilhelm was fighting someone from the obsidian table that he had yet to learn about. That was why the aftershocks of battle reverberated all the way to this very core. In the worst case scenario, he might end up sharing Wilhelm's fate if the vampire lost the fight. There was nothing else he could do other than squeeze his fists and indignantly glare at nothingness.
あらやだ、また地震かしら。
Her invariably bright voice stood out in the distressful situation like a sore thumb.
なあ、ここって今みたいによく揺れるのか？
Shiro took to casual conversation in an attempt to cunningly pry information out of the girl.
そうなの。最近よく怒るようになっちゃって。ほんと困ってるのよ。
結構前にも多かったとか。
ええ。一時期はいつもこんな感じ。
In the middle of World War II, when the whirlwind of war swept across the world, forcing him to rely on his powers on a daily basis just to survive, the woman's words confirmed that Wilhelm was currently in the midst of a battle. As such, he could not waste this perfect opportunity for a prank. Surprises and intrusions were at the core of any fight, and it would be bad for them, all of them, if the bastard happened to kick the bucket. If he was gonna blow out, at least he should do it after relinquishing his powers to Shiro.
そういや俺毎度あいつにちょっかいかけてんな。
You have cock-blocked him so wearily often, dude. He had more run-ins with Wilhelm than any other member of the Obsidian Table. He troubled him the most and even ended up killing him. Well, I mean, it was his own damn fault for being an omnivore bastard that devoured anything and everything. It was about time to let him know that he had just ingested a poisonous mushroom.
ああ悪く思うなよ注意殿。あんたにもいろいろあるように俺にもどうにかしないといけない事情があるんだよ。
It was time for Shiro to join the fight. He should at least be able to stir things up a bit. After all, hitting unsuspected foes from behind was his specialty. He started towards his goal with a brisk smile.
シロ、危ないよ。細なるまで伏せてなきゃ。
お前じゃねえんだ転ぶかよ。あと悪いなエリー一足お先だ。
はあちょっとあんたまさか。
Having said everything he wanted, Shiro reached the fountain without listening to the girl's response. The woman before him enjoyed even the tremors of the blissful smile on her lips. Standing under the spraying fountain, she paid no attention to the man approaching her. However...
お宅のお子さんいじめられてるよ。
He whispered it in a voice so faint it reached only her ears.
今、なんて言ったの？
Oh? The effect was both immediate and colossal. Shiro's voice, like that of Mephisto, delivered a blow to the mind of a mother. Oh? And... the battle outside had already devolved into a one-sided slaughter.
そうか。
His body flew into the air in response to the clash. His arms were torn out, with only the white of his bones visible. He launched a volley of thorns the moment they passed each other. He made sure to use as many as possible to make evasion impossible, yet all they pierced was the night sky, unable to catch up to their target. Their battle was a constant repeat of this outcome. Even though the number of his attacks had already soared past 3 digits, Wilhelm had yet to hit Schreiber a single time. Before he could land on solid ground, the maddened Tempest would assault him, propelling him back up into the air. Wilhelm danced in the air like a leaf blown through the wind. No, it was even worse than that. His attacks came at an ungodly velocity, exceeding the very speed of sound. Losing his hearing, albeit unintentionally, proved to be the worst thing to happen to Wilhelm. A gust of wind whizzed past his ear, the roar of clashing bodies following long after the attack. The sound of the first punch would reach Wilhelm's ears only after he had already been hit a dozen times. The air, having lost its function as a conductor, deprived its wielder not only of sanity but also speech. This worked in Schreiber's favor. The onslaught would not let up. At this stage, his mind had retreated to another dimension, forgetting all about his pistols or craving to avoid being touched. Schreiber had no technique while on a rampage. He merely kept lunging at his foe in straight lines like a crazed boar, which normally would be easy to counter, but here's the thing, he can outspeed anything! He can probably outspeed himself, now that I think about it. He punched and kicked the enemy with all his strength, tearing him apart. He gnawed him with his jaws like a wild beast. He cast aside all the supernatural techniques of murder he had mastered over the years, turning their bout into a primordial scuffle of savagery, a clash of feral beasts straight out of myths and legends. He bolted through the battlefield retaining only his greatest armor, the doctrine of superlative speed. Faster than his foes, faster than anyone, faster, so no one could ever touch him. Such was his only wish, his sole craving given form. No one could capture him, for that was indeed all he had wished for during the course of his life.
Don't touch me, lowlives. Keep your filth away. Don't come any closer and don't touch me.
May this giant whirlwind blast all the deplorable rabble away. That was his one and only desire. He wished for nothing else. He forfeited both his sanity and senses. He would sacrifice anything to attain speed, outstripping all physical matter. As such, it was an obvious consequence that this prayer would not account for his own flesh. The two met in a violent collision of blood and flesh. Wilhelm lost his whole shoulder, while Schreiber's arm, which he used for the attack, exploded from the tip of its fingers down to the elbow. The two regenerated in an instant and shifted back to the offensive. Countless thorns assailed the fleeing Schreiber, who evaded them all before launching a counterattack of his own. His limbs exploded again. He had been discarding body parts like a lizard with his tail. The raging whirlwind, continuing its never-ending process of destruction and regeneration, grew in ferocity, gradually evolving into an all-devouring tornado. Perhaps one could label it a form of cathartic purification. He could not kill without touching another, yet if he did, he would be tainted. He was the physical embodiment of antimony. He hated filth. He wished not to be soiled. As such, he would eradicate it all, but how? How could he rain down death upon all beings without ever being touched? The answer awaiting him beyond that childish contradiction turned out to be joint annihilation. Feeling another's touch ceased to hold meaning if they were both eradicated. He would be decimated, then reborn, only to continue his slaughter for all eternity. At least until his souls run out, I imagine. Limbs that had been soiled were no longer of use to him and would be discarded in favor of new pure ones. In Schreiber's mind, clouded by maddened fury and zeal, even such logic would hold water. The 180,000 victims currently surging through the socket of his right eye to be used as fuel stood testament to that claim. He was indeed the most voracious knight of the Obsidian Table. And that was also precisely the craving so desperately coveted by the one being mercilessly abraded at a steady pace. Didn't you fuck your own? Never mind. To what extent would that bastard have to hijack his thing to be satisfied? Wilhelm's unfettered vehemence merged the bloodlust showering upon his being from above, resulting in a roaring explosion of human emotion. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm one of the characters that would die immediately in DSE because I keep calling out these villains and then I die immediately. The thorns of palpable death, incessantly ravaging the very space they occupied, manifested around them like a barrier. Dwarfing the volleys of Gatling guns, each and every one of them was soaked deep in malice. The prison of stakes, the forest of thorns that consumed the very concept of running would allow no foreign body to escape their grasp. Wilhelm erased the space of evasion itself. There were no gaps in the net of death to squeeze through, even for someone of Schreiber's tender frame. Wilhelm, who persisted through sheer obsession and willpower, finally launched an attack that enmeshed the Ashen Knight. But that ephemeral road to victory that flickered before his eyes was extinguished like a candle's flame by the screech of a beast. An impact! Wilhelm let out a scream of astonishment at the savagery of his foe, a foolish act no sane mind would ever entertain. The ivory demon contorted his clear-cut features at the debacle unfolding before him. A voice, a shower of stakes, rained down upon them in response to a roar befitting an overlord of beasts. Air would turn into a physical wall once one penetrated the barrier of sound. For Schreiber, who had long since transcended its shackles, it felt more like a thunderous hammer. He added to them the vigor of his howl, which created a space for him to escape. He, in his ultimate state of fusion, had become akin to a sentient Ananerbe. The entire of his being, his voice, the spark in his eyes, the very air he breathed had been soaked in vile thaumaturgy. After all, the howl of a wolf had since ancient times worked to repel evil spirits. And while they were both beings of the preternatural, it only stood to reason that the greater calamity would inevitably subsume the lesser. It was the fate of the inferior to be eroded. His merciless counter pierced only air. The attack that contained all of Wilhelm's being failed to graze even a single lock of Schreiber's hair. He was like a square timber being crushed in a grinder, a sapling swallowed by the violent surging waves. Jesus! Little by little, slowly yet most certainly, the incessant erosion of one's body at an ungodly speed. Wilhelm's regeneration couldn't keep up. He was being shredded alive. His fingers were torn off, his bones broken, his stomach punctured, and his intestines crushed. He could see nothing through the muddy veil of his vision, and considering how sound had long since ceased to function, each of his attacks failed to reach their target. His body was slowly being mercilessly annihilated, obliterated, and crushed while a mixture of flesh, blood, and bone sprayed into the air like a fountain. He reformed his body again. His attack missed once again, earning him a supersonic kick to the stomach. The blow sent him flying into the air. His body, propelled like a bullet, crashed into the tower's wall, making the colossal structure veer. His frame was broken like a piece of junk, with blood trickling into his eyes in thick rivulets. His vision turned crimson. Wilhelm, observing the world he was used to and sought after, twisted his lips into a smile. He could predict his outcome from the start. No one could catch up to Schreiber. The rabid beast had been gifted by the boon of absolute speed. No one could touch it. Both his foes and allies acknowledged that. It was an irrevocable actuality. No one, save for Lord Heidrek, could subdue him once he had entered his berserk state. The thorns of the forest were not good enough. Wilhelm Ehrenberg would never catch up to Schreiber. Was that a fact, or an incorrigible misconception? Everyone believed that to be truth, except for Wilhelm himself. A colossal rumble, followed by a fresh impact into his broken frame. The attack that pierced his stomach had practically nailed him to the wall. The onslaught of stakes could not even provide a means to buy time. If anything, they would have only helped Schreiber gain more speed. Oh.
俺がこいつ以下などとどいつもこいつもほざいてやったのか!
In the next moment, his bloodlust reached critical mass, its explosion finally putting a halt to the seemingly endless barrage. The very air trembled from such an awesome display of killing intent, sending even the cracked walls to helplessly crumble to dust. His roar of unbridled fury shook the night air in its wake. For the first time during their fight, Schreiber faltered. His beastly instincts urged him to stop, for all that came to pass till now was but a curtain raiser. Wilhelm landed on the ground and took a step forward with a curse on his lips. His tranquil tone was but the silence before the storm. He would crush and obliterate all and everyone that dared make such a laughable misconception. He would make them pay. No one would escape. All in order to spread this world of eternal night across the world as its absolute rule. The air began to twist and warp. The world cracked, its fissures running along space like spilled obsidian ink. A realm from another domain penetrated the common cosmos. The same way Schreiber manifested his creed of absolute speed. So did Wilhelm nurture an earnest craving in his shriveled heart. Where did I taste of old such rapture, Celestial? Near palpable murderous intent seeped through the fringes of reality. The air was pregnant with... Its bloodlust rained down from the sky like a torrent. And that was not the only change that occurred to him. You don't look too happy. His inner world changed as well. It was now on the verge of a violent transformation brought about by an existence he once devoured.
何って俺は別に何もただちょいとオタクのお子さんがどうなってるか言っただけじゃないか
嘘よそんなの取り消しなさい、違うわよ、ありえないわ
Jesus!
そう言われてもな事実だしよ
Shiro gave a frivolous shrug of his shoulders as Helga's expression twisted into a storm of abrupt fury. Her lips formed a hysterical scream, her bloodshot eyes opened wide, while her disordered hair danced wildly in the wind. She was truly the living embodiment of a furious Gorgon. Her tranquil and amiable mannerisms vanished without a trace. She denied Shiro's words, succumbing completely to her seething surge of emotions. And so Shiro granted her the finishing blow.
ま、俺としても何とかしてやりたいんだがねあいにく力不足でどうしようもない
Oh!
いじめられても助けに行ってやれないのさ
A situation she simply could not acknowledge. Shiro imparted upon her the knowledge of her family being in peril.
なんでねえなんでどうしてなのあんないい子をどうしていじめるやつがいるの優しい子なのよ愛しい子なのよ悪いことなんてできない大切な家族なのにどうして
そりゃ世の中嫌なやつくらい腐るほどいるさ中にはろくでなしもいて大方そういうやつの仕業だろうさ
Only a demon could match a demon. As such, Wilhelm's opponent was without a doubt a rotten bastard just like him. In that sense, Shiro hadn't uttered a single lie. He merely gave Helga a little push, leading her thought process in a convenient direction. Not to the inside, but towards the outside world. Not the Rose Garden, but reality itself.
俺もお友達の危機には駆けつけたいんだがなちょいと力になれそうもない
Shiro being Shiro and somehow managing to freaking put the situation into his advantage. Good lord, dude. So wish for it. Wish for the circumstance that would make such a rescue possible. If you don't want to perish with him, relinquish your existence to me.
幼い私はまだあなたを知らなかった一体私は誰なんだ一体どうして私はあなたの元に来たのだろう
I'd been but a child before I knew you. But who am I? What fate brings her to me? What fate brings me to you?
The chant continued. His craving of the world he sought after slowly came into being.
でいじめてる方だがよ多分かなり危ないやつだぜ人殺すことを何とも思ってないような殴ったら死んだとかふざけたこと抜かすタイプ
She too was slowly awakening to the song in the Rose Garden. The fountain began to pulsate like a beating heart, spurting blood upon the roses, turning them an even vivid hue of crimson.
おお怖いねそんなやつに絡まれたらきついなお子さんボッコボコにされて傷だらけで帰ってきたりしてな
The stench of blood had already pretty much merged with the air. The festering aroma impregnated the sky, making the roses tremble.
まあそれならいいけど下手したら人情沙汰になってたりとかな危ないやつなんだちょいと刺したり刺されたりぐらい若気の至りで発展してみたり
And the call of what?
そんな
Or diva? His words were interrupted by a vehement curse. Helga wrapped her shaking hands around herself, mumbling the same word over and over again, her vacuous stare fixed on the ground.
Unforgivable.
She merely kept uttering that monotonous curse in a dry voice.
故に恋人よ彼を散る死骸を晒せ
Wither to ashes, oh my love.
The rumbling night, the trembling darkness. A night even darker than the one before engulfed the world.
許さない許さない許さない許さない許さない許さない許さない許さない許さない許
core of the Ahnenerbe dwelling within the vampire's bowels answered. She loved Wilhelm and was loved back. As such, the boon of darkness that had taken the shape of his sister pierced the air with an unfettered shriek, to guide her beloved to victory once again.
許さない。よくも私のヴィルヘルムに手を挙げたな。
Oh! The fury of the Gorgon Mother answered the call of the demonic blood. The incantation manifested with unprecedented immaculateness.
The Rose Bear in the Forest of Death.
In that moment, the world was swallowed by an abyss. The night swallowed the night, resulting in impenetrable darkness. The air itself creaked with all of creation wilting in its decay embrace. Deadly embrace. The trees at the side of the road, the buildings, the cars, even Schreiber himself. Not even the moonlight could penetrate its darkness. A paradise forged of Wilhelm's wildest dreams had descended upon the mortal realm.
あのガキしぶといどころか余計なことまでしやがったな。
The content of his words was that of a complaint, yet his tone brimmed with undulated glee. A stubborn foreign body that resisted digestion for this long. As he activated his creation figment, deploying his inner world to the outside realm, he also grew conscious of Shiro's existence. The brat's unbelievable tenacity prompted a remark of genuine admiration from the Ivory Demon.
ああいいぜ、楽しませてくれた例だ。そこで見てな。ご褒美だ。受け取れガキ。年長者から施しだ。涙流して感激しろよな。
誰が
The voice that answered him was the usual crude timber of a rascal. A soul of Olympian stalwartness without a hint of exhaustion to blemish it. Had he been devoured by someone with a weaker will, he could have chosen to plunder the Ahnenerbe from the inside, thus reforming his own soul. Wilhelm gloated upon his splendid luck to have met a soul that continued to entertain him even after death. It was a first even for him.
しよしいい子にしてな。てめえは後だ。戦略があるんだよ。気分よく終わらせてからきっちり溶かしてやる。
Luck favored him today. Kneeling on the ground, he took a good look at his primary goal.
どうよ聞くだろシュライバー。今夜のは特にいい感じなんだ。最高だろこの夜は。永遠に座れる気分ってなよ。どんな気分だよ。なあ教えてくれねえか。
Yeah, try dodging the environment.
そうだな、悪い悪い。狼どころか犬畜生じゃ人間様の言葉も喋れねえみてえだな。
Schreiber gave him a vicious look, but failed to mask the agony and surprise that momentarily overtook his expression. His specialty was to outspeed all of the world. In other words, he was an internal combustion engine of sorts, incessantly generating energy within, a weapon of mass carnage that, in its state of insanity, would continue its endless dash till all foes were completely obliterated. As such,
いつまでもどこまでも俺はてめえを吸い続けられるぜ、シュライバー。
Wilhelm would drain and absorb the very energy that made the rabid beast accelerate without limit, and use it to bolster his own darkness. The very world had turned into a vampire. There was no need for the Ivory Demon to touch his foes for his hegemony to catch them. Eleanor was not the only one who possessed an undodgeable attack. Indeed, Wilhelm was another who could match the Ashen Beast in battle.
皮肉だな。反則で手に入れたその力が結局自分の首を絞めてるわけだ。
And the two mad warriors competing for the seat of ALBEDO were indeed alike. The stronger their opponents, the more they'd power themselves up. Wilhelm had never before synchronized the boon of darkness raging within him to this extent. They now breathed as one. The night would last forever. The morning sun would never grace his realm of darkness. His paradise would expand till the whole of the cosmos was drained dry and withered. Oh my! Schreiber stood up with a growl. The howl of a wounded beast couldn't even compare to that of one merely prowling the wilds. The raw animosity emanating from his every pore was so condensed its weight broke the pavement below his feet.
おー、いい感じだぜシュライバー。そうだ、その目だよ。昔のまま変わらないそいつを俺はえぐってやりたくてな。
His eyes lit up in a vivid crimson within the dark as they beheld the ashen beast's lone socket. A moment later, two whirlwinds invaded the tranquility of the night. Oh, yes! Countless flashes of light clashed in the darkness. The fireworks illuminating the sky were caught by the pharaoh glee and swirled in the whirlwind like stardust. 'Twas the result of the demonic art of draining and absorbing a foe's vigor. Wilhelm, who had been nourished by the most exquisite of feeds, could temporarily enter the realm of Schreiber's speed. Both of their screams transcended words. At this point, it was impossible to tell whether there was a shout of valor or the manifestation of their bloodlust. The sound itself was torn apart. The very air warped and distorted, unable to contain its form. Their battle had turned aerial. The speed with which they darted up the looming tower wall was so tremendous it shattered the yoke of gravity, accelerating further and further. A stake of ungodly speeds pierced the sky. The fattened forest of death lunged at the rabid beast with the intent to skewer it. It was the fastest attack he had ever launched. The destructive prowess of the vampire had finally reached its apex. Yet the creation figment of ultimate speed was still intact. Despite having its energy drained, it would still bolster Schreiber's speed just enough to have him remain a step ahead of his foe. Ungodly or not, there was simply no way of outcompeting Schreiber's speed. For it ignored and ravaged all physical laws of nature. Wilhelm might have plundered the beast's incredible speed, yet it mattered little when its creation figment was to be faster. As such, they competed not in terms of speed, but endurance. It was unlikely that the rabid beast's legion could break through the night of bloodstained roses, especially after it had been bolstered to absolute immutability by Helga's mad affection. As such, the battle would end with Schreiber running out of fuel, or Wilhelm falling before the fact. No other finale existed for the two. Both their bodies have been broken beyond repair. Neither Schreiber, being on the offensive, nor Wilhelm, battered by incessant attacks, could afford defeat. Regenerate, decimate, over and over again. Wilhelm continued his hollow onslaught with a warped obsession. He didn't care that he had been deteriorating faster than he could regenerate.
たく、結局自利品じゃねえかよ。
Shiro let out a sigh, observing the garden's collapse. Is it weird I'm finding myself rooting for freaking Wilhelm again? The flowers seemed to be losing their vivacity, and the vigor of the blood pouring from the fountain was a mere shadow of what it used to be just a short while ago. The only one who seemed unabated was Helga, who still kept shaking and mumbling curses under her breath. Kasumi and Ellie, overpowered by the vampiric pressure of the Netherrealm, couldn't even stand up.
頃合いだな。
Which meant the stage for Shiro was finally set.
よう、生きてるか、かすみ。
なんてあんたはそんな元気なのよ。
健康有料児なんだよ。日頃の行いってやつだ。
I mean...
そんで、エリー、そっちはどうよ。いけそうか。
どうだろう。こりゃちょっときついかな。
オーライ。じゃあ悪いがよ。俺は。
恨みっこはなしって約束だしね。
そういうこった。
二人とも何言って。
Shiro turned away from the two, ignoring the question. Well then, what words would be ideal for their final conversation? Only one matter begged elucidation, an answer to the question he had postponed all this time.
悪いな、かすみ。お前の親父殺したの本当は俺なんだよ。
Oh! Oh! Shit, that's one way to just say goodbye. He uttered the words that Ren forbade him from saying that day. He cracked his neck as a befuddled whimper reached him from behind. An apoptosis, huh?
おい、聞こえてんだろ、真っ白吸血鬼。
He addressed the master of this world.
このままだと負けるぜ、お前。
No reaction, but he could feel the rose's pulse, either in anger or...
ありゃ体に染みつかせて学んでるからな。どんだけ精神がいっちまっても関係ねえよ。体で受けたもんが機能する。覚えられてるぜ。長い付き合いなんだろ。木をてらうとか柵をどうなのじゃ一生かかっても無理だ。あんたはもう知り抜かれてんのさ。命と根性で埋まる差でもないだろうよ。
That was the truth. Wilhelm and Schreiber knew everything about each other, including the fact that a day like this would come. Both could feel it in their bones. And without surprise attacks to rely on, Wilhelm fell one step behind Schreiber in pure brawling.
だからよ、使うもの全部使え。お前が持ってないものが野郎にとっての強調だ。
Something that was alien to him. A ludicrous, childish strategy. To that voice urging him to put his trust in the unknown, the master of the night could simply not afford to lend an ear. Wilhelm's arm flew into the air, ripped out alongside his entire shoulder. He instantly caught it in his other hand, preparing to reabsorb the flesh through his natural regeneration. But the maddened beast attacks denied him even that. A sudden chance at victory. Schreiber, realizing that now was the time to tip the scales of this battle, lunged at Wilhelm as the vampire momentarily hesitated. He tore his other arm off. He broke and severed his legs with a razor-sharp kick. He whammed the remaining torso, sending it flying down to the ground. The summit of the tower they had long left behind awaited the vampire below, like a giant tombstone. Gravity pulled Wilhelm down towards it. Robbed of his limbs, he was unable to defend himself. Yet Schreiber was already at the vampire's heels, his speed reaching maddening heights. In his mind's eye, he could see his own demise. He saw Schreiber lunging at him in slow motion, about to unleash what would likely be a mortal blow. Their silhouettes melted into one as a deafening explosion shook the vicinity. Oh! In that moment, two voices reverberated across the night sky as one. Wilhelm had yet to perish, for that voice was the one that boasted victory. Shiro's arm had sprouted from the vampire's chest, his heart, and shoved a gun right into the jaws of the beast. This time Schreiber truly froze in shock. Even with his vast experience in bloodshed, he could have never foreseen a move like this. It went beyond the realm of any sort of comprehension. This attack, having transcended every single scenario that the indomitable Ashen Knight could envision, successfully rendered his mind blank for a brief moment. And Wilhelm knew that would happen. For the curse of Shiro's foreknowledge had infected him from within. In the moment he grew conscious of his own death, a strange noise assailed his consciousness, making him remember the precise trajectory Schreiber would take for his finishing blow. Cancer cells proliferated. Reinhardt's legion, Shiro's foreknowledge, merely being close to them could cause one to be infected by their malady and have their bodies be filled with insatiable hunger. That was the kind of existence Wilhelm had devoured and made a part of himself. That action was the greatest manifestation of his ill-laden fate, dooming him to the cruelest of curses known to man. Yet at the same time, he had been robbed of any sort of anxiety and hesitation that the unknown might precipitate. The curse of remaining calm regardless of the circumstances. The reason why Shiro could hold his ground in battles against monsters despite being an ordinary human, and it now fell into the hands of Wilhelm, proving to be his ticket to triumph. A thorn sprouted from the muzzle of the gun, nailing the beast's mouth to it. Attaching itself like the hook of a fishing rod, it guided the barrel to a perfect bullseye. Its prey could do nothing but let out a series of pained wails.
往生際悪いぜ。潔くさっさとバルハラに落ちるんだな。
まあそういうこった。悪いなシュライバー。アウフピーターゼン。ああ最高だ。てめえにずっと言ってやりたかった。
Schreiber attempted to literally tear himself away from the gun, but it was all too late. That pull of the trigger would decimate the very concept of absolute speed, bringing the spectacular performance to its humble conclusion. The roaring gunshot was the bell signaling the end! A demonic bullet, soaked in the power of the Onanerbe, exited the barrel. With his head blown clean off, Schreiber's body fell limp onto the ground. Wilhelm fell down towards the ground after Schreiber's mangled remains, elation singing a concert of bliss in his chest. Freaking Shiro and Wilhelm teaming up. I mean, using each other, but fucking teaming up to take down Schreiber. Holy fuck. The eruption of his cackling fit sounded almost like a howl of lamentation. He couldn't care less where that foreknowledge, potent enough to bend even the craving of immortal Einarjar, came from. He felt only fulfillment. His roses sparkled in vigor like never before. He finally toppled him. All his cells, every single pore of his body, cheered in elation at having finally defeated the nemesis he had despised for too many years to count. He sang the ode of victory with a cackle, mindless to the force of gravity plummeting him towards the ground. He could do nothing to contain his explosive outburst of jubilation as he fell on the top of the tower. The impenetrable darkness faded with its master's demise. The maddened cackle ceased, indicating the evanescence of the vampire's life. The end of the ivory demon had been abrupt, yet absolute. He gained victory but lost his life in the process. Having reached the pinnacle of his existence, there was nothing else awaiting him beyond that step. That was the extent of his story. If perishing after attaining the greatest state of happiness translated to a fruitful life, then Wilhelm Ehrenberg had indeed ended his existence as a victor. I'm gonna end it there. That seems like an incredibly fitting way to end the tale of the Pallid Beast. Thank you all very much for watching. I'm gonna go cackle madly. And also question my mentality at this point, because now I'm kind of scared of Interview with Kazik Lubey. Kind of in a good way, though. But scared nonetheless. So thank you all very much for watching. I'm gonna go now and try to watch something that will try to put my brain back together. I'll see you guys next time.